Joining us on the line right now, a man who follows politics very closely, a man who runs, I think, one of the best websites in town when it comes to following politics, realclearpolitics.com. Tom Bevan's with us. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
We're doing very well. Okay, we're going to start out. We're going to get to the numbers in a minute, and I know that's there's some really interesting stuff there. But, I mean, first of all, this big, match that has established between Bill O'Reilly and Fox News over the debate. Your thoughts on it?
I've heard people arguing both sides that this is Trump's, first big mistake in the campaign, and other people saying it was another stroke of genius by the maestro who's playing the media. I tend to think, absent, any sort of evidence to the contrary, I don't know that this hurts Trump at all. I mean, you can say, I'm in Iowa right now, and I've been traveling around for the last couple of days. I was at a Trump rally here in Iowa City Tuesday. And right when the news broke about that he was going to skip the Fox News debate, and I asked a couple folks at the rally whether they thought this was a mistake or whether they were upset by it. Didn't bother them at all. So yeah. I don't see this really hurting him that much.
Among those people who like him, they're going to continue to like him.
Correct.
Yeah,
and the idea that he somehow that Iowa voters are going to feel disrespected that he's not there on the stage. I don't necessarily buy that argument.
Right. So there's this big stat that everybody throws out, which is 40% of Iowa voters actually make up their mind in the last several days. And we certainly saw that 4 years ago. I remember, just a couple of days before the Iowa caucuses, all the word on the ground was, Santorum's really gaining steam. Santorum's really gaining steam. And he came out of nowhere. Is it true of Iowa that they'd make up their minds at the last minute? And if so, who does that favor right now?
I think it generally is true that, Iowans don't really focus on this stuff until, in a serious way. They attend these events, they kick the tires on some of these different candidates, but they don't really, some of them do, certainly, a good portion of them are commit early and they work hard on their candidate's behalf, et cetera, but there are a lot of folks out there shopping around, and even at Trump rallies, you can see some of these folks, they're not necessarily committed, they wanted to come and see the big show and see what it was about, they've heard a lot about him, so I do think we will see, these folks commit in the last few days. I don't know who that's going to favor necessarily. I mean, you could make the argument again that you could have a candidate who's going to significantly overperform their poll numbers. That's what the Rubio folks are hoping, that he's going to sort of come out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, he's in third place, but a distant third place. And certainly the Cruz folks are arguing that their folks are more fully committed, and they're going to do what needs to be done on Monday night to deliver a victory to him. And the question really still remains about Trump's folks. Are they as committed to him, as enthusiastic as they are about him? And they really are enthusiastic. The folks I talked to at this rally, some of them they had never caucused before. One of the pre-speakers asked how many had never been to a caucus, and about a third to a half of the folks in the room raised their hand. And they were passing out flyers and really trying to get folks to get knowledgeable about the caucus process and where they need to go and where they need to be on Monday night. So they're doing their best, and we'll see if it pays off.
All right, so break down the numbers for us right now, and then let's ask this question about the division between people in Iowa generally and likely caucus goers. Do likely caucus goers mean more in this particular election cycle when a lot of people suspect that we're going to have a lot of new people brought into the system that have never been there before?
I think they still do. I mean, historically, every poll that we have, every poll that's being taken now is among quote-unquote likely voters, right? And there are different ways of screening these folks to tell whether they're a likely voter or not. They rate themselves on a scale. You ask them if they've been to a caucus before, and that helps determine whether they actually, get out and have voted in the past. So every single poll we have is of likely voters, and even those polls of likely voters show Trump leading. I mean, he's leading. We had a new poll out from NBC News, Wall Street Journal, Marist this morning. Trump's +7, which is a big swing from their last poll 3 weeks ago. He's up 6 points in our Real Clear Politics average, which contains, 8 polls that have been taken in the last 2 weeks. So it looks like likely voters are supporting Donald Trump, and again, that doesn't even take into account necessarily if he's able to bring new people into the process who are not considered likely voters, like Obama did 8 years ago.
But when I look at the polls that you guys are featuring at Real Clear Politics, I notice they're all the sort of the big brand name polls that are sort of have national brands. But there's also an Iowa State WHO poll, right there in Ames. that has some different results of likely caucus goers. Is there a way to sort of weed out which polls understand and can poll better in a persnickety state like Iowa? You would think that the Iowa State WHO local people actually have a better handle on it, no?
Well, that's a good question, Larry. And actually, I'd have to talk to the guy who runs our polling averages because I said, I've been on the road, so
no problem.
I don't really know. I mean,
I'm just curious, because everyone always says how quirky Iowa is. You wonder who has a better handle on what's really going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and it is a tough state to poll. Primaries are tough in particular, and caucuses are even more tough. And the poll that is talked about as being sort of the gold standard here is the Des Moines Register poll done by Ann Selzer. She's had a pretty darn good track record over the last few cycles in terms of her ability to sort of forecast what the electorate is going to look like, because that's what this is all about, right? And we're only talking about 100,000 people in the entire state. That's about the number that people think are going to turn out, plus or minus 100,000. I mean, 4 years ago, it was, Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney tied with 29,000 votes apiece.
Yeah,
so,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
We're talking about a pretty small slice of folks here.
All right, so here's my final question. I mean, take the polls out of it for a moment. You're on the ground. You're there in Iowa. You have a sense of it. You're an experienced viewer of these things. What's your sense? How's it going to play out?
Well, listen, as I said, I think the Trump phenomenon is real, and as much as I think Ted Cruz has been hurt, and the polls reflect that. But I think Donald Trump is probably going to win the state. I mean, if the vote were taken today, and again, we still have a few days left, and there's still some fluidity left in the electorate. So, but I mean, I think the Trump phenomenon is real. Ted Cruz is I think in a strong second place. There's a lot of energy for him here as well, and his voters are very committed. And Rubio, again, in the last polls that we have, he's sort of on a little uptick. And I think if Rubio, his folks are saying that they're going to outperform. That's their mantra. They think they're going to surprise some folks, and they think that might actually make them the sort of story of the night. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But right now, it looks pretty true to form in terms of what the polls are showing as far as what I can tell and see and hear being here on the ground.
Tom Bevan, really, really fast. It's just amazing to me that we're only talking about the Republicans when the actual closest race in Iowa right now are the Democrats. Can you quickly give us your take on that? It's got to be real fast.
Sure. I was in Mason City last night feeling the burn. Bernie showed up. He came down from Minneapolis after having a crowd of, I think, 20,000 up there. They put him in a really small venue, which was shocking to me. It was too small for the crowd. I mean, people were overflowing into rooms all over the place. He is, look, this is legit.
He's got the momentum. I can't tell you,
he definitely does. I mean, I can't tell you just the people I overheard saying, I like Hillary, but, Hillary's okay, but I really like Bernie.
All right.
We'll see. He's speaking the language. So.
We'll see what happens. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics. This is what political junkies like us live and die for.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks a lot.